Hello, and welcome to Season 12 of The Horrific Podcast. We're two friends who live in different places but share a love for scary movies. Each week we watch the same movie on our own and then hop on a call to discuss it. This season, the theme is blatant pandering. We're going to review 10 movies that were either made in or set in the U.S. states that have downloaded the most episodes of The Horrific over the last few years. This will be a shorter season, so we may work in some listener recommendations and horror news along the way too. Thanks for listening. So, we mentioned before this season is going to be shorter, at least as far as the list of movies we're going to do, so that we can work in recommendations more. Mm-hmm. And this week we're doing a recommendation, but I can't really say who recommended it.
Because you're not a snitch.
Exactly.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But also, no, I had like multiple people bring this up, and they asked if we were going to do an episode on Terrifier 2. And I said, well, I haven't even heard of Terrifier 1. And they're like, oh, well, I keep getting Facebook ads for it. So basically, Facebook recommended Terrifier 2 to all of the people we know, which caused them to ask us about it. So really, I think this episode was requested by Mark Zuckerberg.
Oh, okay.
So we did it. You're welcome.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah. Our homie, Big M. But yeah, so this was a movie that until people randomly started asking me about the sequel, I had never heard of. Did you have any exposure to it before?
Nope, same exact thing.
Yeah. But part of the decision, I don't know what percentage, but a decent percentage of the reason why I was like, yeah, we should just go ahead and do it, is that it was available on Tubi, which continues to be just a delightful movie watching experience. So you really can't go wrong with it, and especially for a short movie. It's like, the movie is short and on Tubi. Yeah, we're obviously going to do that.
It's a win-win.
Yeah, exactly. Well, win-win-win, because Zuck wins too.
Well, yeah, that's true.
So yeah, without further ado, I will do the introduction, then you can do your fun facts, and then we will get into the sawed in half details.
Okay.
In 2016, Dead Central Presents brought us Terrifier, a gory, low-budget slasher written and directed by Damien Leone. This film tells the story of a deranged clown named Art who goes out on the town on Halloween Eve looking to stir up some trouble. Can anyone stop him, or will his rampage continue forever? Only one way to find out. This movie was made on a budget of $35,000 and saw only a limited theatrical release after premiering at the Telluride Horror Show Film Festival. It can currently be streamed for free on Tubi.
Perfect.
What did you learn about this movie?
So the clown in this, his name's Art the Clown. He was actually previously in another movie called All Hallows Eve. But this is technically based off of a short story, or short film, called Terrifier, that came out in 2011. The actor David Howard Thornton, who played Art the Clown, he was the sixth person to audition for the role. During the audition, he began miming the tasting of a beheaded victim's blood, but then added salt to improve the flavor, which is what won him that role. Which is just like, good job, bud. You did great. And those are the facts I have about the film.
Yeah, I had a feeling this one was not going to have a whole lot of information available.
Yeah.
I am interested to go back and see some of the short films that I guess like evolved into this, just to see kind of where it came from. But I mentioned this being made on a budget of $35,000. I also, I double checked that just because it seemed like absurdly low for a movie and in today's day and age. And I saw another number that said it was like closer to 100,000, but either way, that's real low.
Yeah.
And I honestly thought that it was surprisingly well made given that budget. Like, camera quality, lighting, and acting were not top tier, but just like the audio quality and the editing and the practical effects and stuff were, I thought, surprisingly good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there were a lot of things about it that I would have given it a pass for that it didn't need. And I found that pleasantly surprising, especially for a movie that is kind of this over the top, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I could definitely see how they could do it for $35,000 based off of like, just if you think about like location alone.
Yeah.
Like it's not like this was like an adventure story, you know, where like they were going cross country. It was all like in the same general vicinity.
Yeah.
So like that could definitely, you know, be a good way to save money. And I know we've talked about that in the past of like, sometimes you can sacrifice like location for camera quality or whatever, you know, the case. And in this case, I think it definitely worked too. Like they were able to get away with it without having to have scenes all over the world.
Yeah. And I think one thing we've talked about before, it kind of taking into account like the difference between a movie like Get Out and a movie like Us, is sometimes being a little more focused or a little more constrained, where you have like the single location and a limited number of characters, kind of works better for horror movies, just because you're only getting to know like a smaller number of people, which means you like empathize with them individually more. And so as the horror things are happening, you're like more invested in this one character because there's only two characters that you know that you like. And so this one, I think, benefited from that in that you kind of had the two girls and then you had the sister that came later, but really there weren't a lot of other characters to get invested in. And the movie, because it was kind of constrained to just a couple of locations, really didn't do anything other than focus on making the situation as creepy and scary as possible. And so, I was not sure at all what to expect going into this, but I think given what it had to work with, it did really well, from creating a super creepy villain with kind of some basic makeup and stuff to, you know, the practical effects I thought were like really, really good and kind of ambitious.
No, I mean, I don't think I could say it like any better than that. I agree completely. It was, if they didn't have the decent special effects and like a really, even though it's a clown, which is common in horror films, it still felt like a new villain that you've never seen before, kind of thing, and definitely appreciate that. And if it didn't have either of those though, and it was just relied on, you know, like the acting and dialogue and stuff, then I could definitely.
Those things were not super strong,
right?
but the movie wasn't trying to rely on them either,
exactly. And it made up for it, I feel like, even further based off of just like what they developed and created. And, you know, being that we haven't seen Terrifier 2, I would think that it might have a little bit higher of a budget, that they could actually develop a little bit more. But regardless, like, just this one still, for me, was a win just based off of Art the Clown.
Yeah.
Creepy guy.
And even the one scene that I really liked was when they were sitting there in the restaurant and he just kind of comes in and he's holding that trash bag and he just sits down sort of at the table across the room and starts just like being creepy. I mean, like, I have a hard time like describing it more accurately than that.
Yeah.
But he's like very fixated on the one girl, but also is just, without saying anything or really doing anything like scary, is just creepy AF. And I thought the actor in that scene, like, because we said acting can be kind of rough in this one, I thought Art did a great job of portraying just a completely insane, creepy, murderous clown. Yeah.
And I think like the mime aspect had a lot to do with that too.
Yeah.
like where it was almost like where I kind of talk about how you don't want to see like the bad guy because imagination,
Yes. Yeah.
It's almost like he still played part into that too with, not hearing his voice or anything like that. Like you were just, watching and having to like pay attention to what he's doing, and the makeup and everything that they did was designed in a way where he could just look at you and you're just creeped out, like mouth closed, stare.
Yeah. And I think that's an interesting part about that is the movie did a good job of focusing on him. Because he was like clearly the part of this that was good. And so the fact that so much of it was around just the little things about his character, because obviously they didn't give him like any backstory. They didn't try to explain his motivation for doing anything. He was just sort of an evil agent that existed in the world and was mostly unstoppable. Mm-hmm. But the way that he didn't make noise, even if he was like getting shot or something, was really creepy, because it's almost like, can you even really hurt the guy? Like, is he even really experiencing, pain in the way that normal people would?
Yeah.
But there were also these like really subtle things they did with his appearance that I thought were amazing. Like there's the scene where the blonde girl is sitting in the car listening to the report about the murder on the radio. And then the door opens and she's just assuming it's her friend. But really it's Art, which was like predictable, but the way they pulled it off was still fun. But just the way they did that side shot of him where he had like the blood splatter on his face and shirt. Mm-hmm. Like I thought that was such a subtle but like perfect way of making him look even creepier, like escalating, the danger that he's presenting and stuff. Mm-hmm. And that's a way that they kept like his character getting more creepy and more dangerous looking without having to try and explain everything away. Yeah. And I really liked that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that, it definitely, as you watch it and you see those, and you notice those things happening, you're like, yet again, it's just one of those, like, there's so much going on behind the scenes of films that you don't know about, and that you really do kind of feel like it's something special if it's with the producers or the director or whoever that can add things like that, knowing, it almost just seems like a veteran move in a way, like something that, you have a mechanic that's been working on this car forever. He knows a trick to get this part off kind of thing. It's like almost seems like that.
Yeah, for sure. This one definitely had a lot of the, I don't know, like high-level slasher filmmaking mm-hmm. stuff, like this one was clearly somebody who is very into that genre and was really leaning into it.
Yeah.
This one was exactly a slasher and was not trying to be anything else. Mm-hmm. And, you have historically said that as far as horror movies go, just give you a guy with a knife who can't die and that's all you need. And I just really don't know what else you could ask for mm-hmm. from a slasher movie in 20, whatever year this came out.
Yeah, 16.
2016. Yeah. Like it is the most refined version of that subgenre in my mind. Mm-hmm. And there were definitely scenes that would be difficult for some people to watch. Like the gore is, I think, quite a bit more than what you would have seen in like the original Halloween, for example.
Oh yeah.
Like this one is definitely pushing the boundaries more as far as visually disturbing things. And so this one is one, that's not a whole lot of this wouldn't be shown on cable, for example.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
But if that's something if you're looking for like a gory horror movie, I just don't really know how you would top this as far as anything that's been made recently that's not trying to like totally change something about the genre.
Yeah, and it's like it's like the perfect storm for my type of horror films, where it's like, if the budget was $35,000, it's kind of like a lower budget. They put a lot of thought into this. The special effects weren't bad at all. Yeah. Original bad guy, and you gave him simple tools, and he did with it what he could.
Yeah.
So that being said, like I was absolutely in love with this film.
Yeah.
I've been trying to like not show it, but it's probably been very obvious from the beginning, where it's just like definitely get the dialogue. And even for me, like I was watching, it's just like, ooh, yeah, that's something I'm sure that will be brought up. But still, like at the end of the day, this one, like, because like I was watching this one when I was sick, and one of the times in the past 2 months, and
Yeah.
I don't know if it was that or what, but like I kept feeling like I could see Art the Clown like out my window.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, and so it was like I was like even kind of more tripped out by it because of that. But yeah, it was just kind of a perfect storm. So like if that's your style that you like, of films like what I described, then you will be in heaven watching this, and I definitely suggest that you all do.
Yeah. Did you have any favorite scenes?
Yeah, I think honestly, the one that I thought was the best, or my favorite, which is what you asked, right? Jesus, I'm sorry. Is when you kind of see how crazy Art the Clown is. You don't know what you're necessarily dealing with quite yet. Kind of like, and if you're just watching Terrifier for the first time and you haven't watched, the All Hallows Eve or like the short film, then like you don't really know much about Art the Clown. But the pizza scene where he's sitting across from him that you were talking about earlier, like that one definitely was up there on one of my favorites, because like talking about like when he first comes in to the pizza place, it's everything he's doing is unnatural.
Yeah.
And not normal and incredibly creepy. It's behind someone's back, so like only one person can see it happening. Just making the faces and just the scenes that it would cut to his face, and he's just staring straight at her. Just gave you the chills. Like it was just, for me, it was just super creepy, like putting myself in those shoes.
Yeah. Another note that I had from sort of that general part of the movie is that Art the Clown destroyed that toilet.
100%. 100%. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like he was technically he was creepy, like before they decided to go get food, like, standing there, but like you didn't know where the film was going, basically.
Yes.
You know, and I didn't know if those two were the main characters or they were just going to be, killed off at the beginning to show what he can do,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. There were a couple scenes that really stood out to me. I'm going to try and pick just a couple because I had a lot in my notes, but there's one where I guess it's after Tara's in the old building and she meets like that creepy lady with the doll, and then is going to leave. And then Art is just standing there like a mime, covered in blood and holding the scalpel. And like it just goes silent as soon as she sees him.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he moves really quickly and the sound kicks back in. And just the whole way that was pulled off as far as using the sound and the camera and everything else about like the movie making of that sequence, I thought was amazing. And that was one thing that this movie did a good job of, is it would kind of distract you a little bit with maybe like another story arc or some interaction or something. And then all of a sudden it would just cut back to him. So it's like he's always there. Even if you're distracted for a minute, it's really going to come back to the danger that he presents. And then like every time you thought this movie had gone as hard as it was going to go, it found a new way to go further. Later, there's the scene where Art comes across the lady with the doll and she's like begging him, to give the doll back and to let her go and all this stuff, and is asking if there's kindness in him and if he's ever felt a mother's touch. And then they seem to have this weird like hugging moment and he's like sucking his thumb and you're just like, what is happening? And then shortly after that, he comes out like wearing her skin and hair.
Yeah.
It was just like, damn.
Yeah.
Yeah. They just kept finding new ways to get darker.
Yeah. And that scene itself too was just incredibly creepy because like it definitely was just like two people with mental illness, like communicating in a way. Like it was just so strange how that scene went down, it's just like,
yes,
what is going on? And, yeah, felt super bad about that scene happening too. But the end effect was mission accomplished. Because it was creepy as hell. Like that's what they wanted to do for sure, and that's what was successful.
Yeah. So all in all, my final review on this one is just that, like, if you're into gory slashers, then you're being silly if you haven't watched this. Like, this is just about the most on point example of a modern movie that fully embraces that subgenre that I've seen.
Yeah, without a doubt. I'm definitely looking forward to watching the second one now too. Yeah, for sure. Just to see, and honestly, like, I'll probably watch the first one. I think it's actually on Tubi.
Yeah, the All Hallows Eve thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I was on there earlier looking around, and I think I saw it. So it just kind of excites you because you're just like, I want to see the rest.
Yeah.
I want to see what they got to offer here. And it could turn out bad, and this could be the good one, but you never know.
And that's it for today's episode. If you've listened this far, then thank you, and we hope you've enjoyed it. We're always looking for new ideas, so if you have any questions, comments, or movie suggestions, please send us an email at thehorrificpod@gmail.com, or feel free to comment on or message our Facebook page. Just search for The Horrific Podcast. Thanks for listening.